everyone, CleverGirlDanni here, and today we are going to be talking about sexual assault. My hands are where you can see them. With everything that's been going on in the news recently, people are finally opening up their eyes and realizing that sexual assault is a much bigger issue than we thought. Meanwhile, every single woman in your life is going, I know! With Harvey Weinstein allegations coming out, more women and men are feeling compelled to share their sexual assault stories. But strangely enough, there's still the age-old questions that are being asked of the victims. Didn't you see it coming when you walked into his hotel room? Okay, let's just take a second to talk through this. You're walking alone at night, going home. You decide to go down this dark, unlit alleyway, and you just happen to get stabbed. Now, could you have chosen a different route? Sure, but you're still not the one who did the stabbing. You wouldn't be blamed for being murdered, so why are you being blamed for being sexually assaulted? And in the case of Louis C.K., the argument is, well, he didn't touch them. No, he just made them watch him jack off. This is what I say to that. Another analogy, if you will. Do you remember when you're an annoying little kid and your parents tell you for the umpteenth time to leave your sibling alone, and then you play this fun little game? I'm not touching them. I'm not touching them. Look, I'm not touching them. Mom! You know what you're doing is antagonizing. You know you're making the other person uncomfortable and upset, and yet you're choosing to do it anyway. I'm sorry, that's kind of a weird comparison. I know it might make some of you uncomfortable to compare child's play to sexual assault, but just think, for Kevin Spacey, it's an average Tuesday after school. Needless to say, there is a lot to talk about, and I'm going to bring my friend Sarah on to do just that. Hold on to your butt, and only your butt, unless you've been given consent by somebody else to touch their butt. 'Cause here we go. Hey everyone, I'm CleverGirlDanni. This is Sarah, and today we are going to be talking about sexual assault. You were part of the Weinsteingate scandal. Your introduction to him wasn't via the industry, it was through an outside job.
Yeah, I was a nanny. When you go on an interview for a nanny position, you don't expect someone to open the door with their underwear on and nothing else and ask you inappropriate questions and hug you and tell you that they love you. Yeah.
That's going above and beyond as a nanny. That's not part of your job.
No. Shouldn't be a part of anyone's job description.
No. Why do you think that this is all coming out now?
So this Weinstein story, Sharon Waxman tried to break it 13 years ago. The New York Times sort of stamped on it, didn't feel that they had enough evidence, proof, whatever. People decided to start looking into it again, and Ronan Farrow decided to start investigating and found women who were willing to speak up. That's why I came forward, because all of these women came forward. I saw that there were actually repercussions, which is very rare.
That was something that a lot of people kind of took issue with, is why are these women talking about this now?
Oh.
And as somebody who's experienced sexual assault, and I have on a smaller degree, but still, I completely understand. But do you want to maybe give insight as to why people would hold off from talking about it immediately?
Oh, yeah. There's this process you go through where you've been in a traumatic situation, you've been assaulted or harassed or raped or whatever it is, and the first thing your brain does is it tries to make sense of it. You try to regain control of the situation because control has been taken away from you. You try to normalize it and you try to go, oh, it's fine. Was it really what I thought? You play all these games with yourself.
You try and convince yourself that it's not what it actually was.
Yeah, because if you face it for what it is, it's horrifying, and then there's shame. You feel some level of guilt, like somehow it's my fault that this happened. And then the truth of the matter is, when people do come forward, even if it's right away, they're not believed. If people want to know why women and men who are victims of assault don't step forward, it's because there's very little to be gained. There's no financial impetus for this. I know people are throwing that around, and I just want to be really clear, like, that's not why people speak. It's scary. I was carrying around the Weinstein story for 9 years. Same thing with my rape. 9 years.
Yeah.
And that, whether you're conscious of it or not, takes a toll. Unfortunately for a lot of us, the statute of limitations has passed for any sort of criminal conviction. For many of these things. And the only form of justice that really can ever be served at this point is by people hearing survivors and believing them.
All of this coming out at this point in history, do you think it's related at all to the political climate?
Our president has been accused of raping and sexually assaulting and sexually harassing well over 20 women. And whatever your politics are, maybe you agree with his policies, maybe you don't. But the fact that we as a nation elected him, knowing he's a sexual predator, is really disturbing. But the thing is, people went, well, why now? Why are these women coming out now?
Right.
We don't believe them, the people who wanted to support him. And then people who didn't want to support him were going, how can we have a rapist in the White House? And what I say to that is, Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton was accused of raping several women.
Yes.
I believe the women who came out against Donald Trump, and I believe the women who came out against Bill Clinton. We can't make this a political issue. We can't decide to believe some victims and not others because we politically align with one particular person and not with another, or because we like their work, we like their art. What's interesting is seeing which perpetrators are immediately accepted as being guilty and which ones aren't by society. Harvey Weinstein's easy to hate, but you know, when it's George Takei, and
it's someone who's charismatic or progressive or seen as a sort of idol.
Yeah, champion for those who are subjugated, and somebody who was revolutionary in his career, it's harder for some people to believe that. It's really important that we start differentiating between our personal opinions or feelings about someone based on what we thought we knew about them and the truth of how they actually are. All of these great artists are being taken out of the industry. But what's exciting about that is that it means there's more room for diverse voices. We have still to this day, very whitewashed Hollywood. You know, it's mostly white stories and it's mostly male stories. And I think that now, with people being forced out of the industry because of the wrongdoing that they've done, we have so many thousands of women, people of color, queer people who have been dying to get involved, to have their voices heard, to have their stories told. And there's room for other straight white men too, who are not going to be abusers. The way to change people and the way to change society is by storytelling. It's not really through political debate, it's not through argument, it's through reaching people in their heart, where they can feel things, where they can empathize with other people and their stories. And so we have so much power as storytellers to elicit that change if we're given an opportunity.
Do you think that everything that's happening right now in Hollywood is going to permeate the average American workspace?
Well, I hope so, because I mean, one thing that I want to make really clear is like, this is not a Hollywood problem. This is a societal problem. So what we're seeing reflected in Hollywood and in these powerful men is happening in all other industries, and it's also happening with men who aren't particularly powerful.
What advice do you have for men in particular, since obviously men and women are both affected by sexual assault, but currently the female narrative is kind of really driving this movement. So what advice would you have?
Yeah, well, not only that, but if we're looking at no matter who the victim is, you know, men and women can both be victimized by sexual assault. 99% of the time, it's a male perpetrator. So while I think society talks about this as a female issue and women are always taught how to avoid getting raped, men need to be taught not to rape. My advice for men who want to help would be examine your past. Think about ways in which you may have crossed lines, or ways in which you've been complicit in allowing other people to cross lines. That ranges from off-color jokes to harassment to groping to rape to coercive sex with a partner. It's a lot to think about and a lot of things that we don't talk about. Ask how you can actually help. Sometimes helping is just listening, and sometimes helping is using your privilege and your agency and your voice to give support to the women who are in this movement, or to draw attention to things that other men may not be thinking about. And then be a real ally. Take action, use your voice, listen to survivors. Educating people and men on this issue requires a lot of emotional labor. And especially if you're a survivor, having to re-traumatize yourself, and oftentimes education on this matter gets a lot of pushback from people who feel defensive about it or don't understand it, and it can be very hard on someone. So instead of requiring that emotional labor from people, do your research. There are so many wonderful studies, op-ed pieces, blog posts. Do engage, be a part of the conversation, but put in the work yourself.
Do you have any advice for other sexual assault survivors that are out there?
Oh yeah, I think there's always that part of our brain when we've been victim to something like this that asks, you know, was it something I did? Is there something I could have done differently? Should I have not been spending time with this person? Maybe I should have worn something else. I had too many drinks, whatever it is. it's not your fault. Allow yourself to vocalize what you went through and acknowledge it for what it is. Don't trivialize your experience, and seek professional help. Go to a therapist, go to a psychologist, talk to your religious leaders if you trust them and feel like they can help give you advice or peace of mind. If and when you're ready to name your attacker, feel like you can do it. You may get nasty comments, you may have people who don't believe you, but it's your right to tell the truth. On the other hand, if you don't want to share your story,
You don't need to.
you don't have to. It's not on survivors to change the culture. And I think it's always been put on us to do that.
Are there any sites or places that you would recommend for people who are seeking help?
Yeah, I've gotten a lot of help from RAIN. They have a crisis hotline. It's 24 hours. They have counselors on hand. They can send you information about the penal code in your state, what your options are for taking legal action or reporting things to the police. The other foundation that I've just recently started doing some work with is called the Joyful Heart Foundation. It helps survivors of sexual assault, and one of their big projects is trying to clear up the backlog of rape kits.
There are places to go and people to talk to.
Yeah, there are.
And ears out there listening.
It's true.
Thank you so much for coming on and talking about this.
Thank you for having me on. I always appreciate being given a voice about things like this, and
Keep using your voice.
I'll try my best.
Thank you everyone for watching. I'm CleverGirlDanni. This is Sarah, and we'll be talking to you.
Bye.